Hey there, I'm Dan Diebel, and this is part two of the question how to speak to an empty room. We're in heightened, unprecedented times, and many churches all over the country are speaking from the same stage, the same lights, the same everything, except for the one thing that's not the same is the room is empty, and it takes maybe a different kind of muscle to leverage or stretch than we're used to. And so I want to offer this here, part two, is for leadership teams, creative teams, tech teams, maybe to get your arms around the full experience and the determination of your approach for it. Have just 10 points, want to go through them as quickly as possible. Number one, we have the opportunity to help our people set themselves apart. And I just have to say, this is so huge. It's frightening times, it's serious times. But here's perhaps one of the fruits is that how many of us have dreamt about saying, how can we bring a discipling orientation into the family room? And here we have it. Here we have it. So we get to be instructive, and I think people are hungry for it. So a few ideas is one, help train your people to say, will you set a room or a space in a room, if you're able, apart, where this is where you'll have daily times together, and this is where you'll have weekly times for worship, and give some ideas in terms of how that room can be set apart and how it can be set up. Light a candle. One church that I've been working with, they just said, yeah, how cool at the same time during every service now, live streaming, we're going to ask everyone to have a candle, and we're going to light it all at the same time. And we know that our Jewish friends, when they welcome or usher in the Seder meal and their Sabbath day, they will often do so by lighting a candle just to say, we welcome you, God, into this space. It's symbolic, and something I think actually happens in a simple moment like that. And then be really clear about how you want people to participate. When you stand, when you would normally stand, ask people to stand. And like, bring leadership to this moment. Don't like, hey, if you want, would you stand? Like, let's all stand now. Okay. If you're a culture where it's like, raise your hands, I go, name it. Hey, this you might be used to doing this in a dark room or whatever. You might not be used to doing this next to Aunt Nellie, and that's okay. I also just want to acknowledge that there will be people who maybe are married to a spouse that doesn't believe. You know, you might want to acknowledge and just name, this will be, even if it's just, we have families that have never done this before, name it, but then lead through it and call people to a new form of participation. Why? Well, it's hard enough to get people to be proactive and participatory in an auditorium. Now imagine, like we talked about in the first session, imagine the chaos of a room. The distractions. Amazon, is delivering packages. Ring is going off. Social media, scrolling, swiping, dogs puking, babies doing what babies do. Like everything, right? And so we want to help people move from a passive recipient, which they're used to when they turn on the TV, when they're watching YouTube, they get to pick and choose when they want to check in and when they don't want to check in. What we want to help establish is intentionality, proactivity, high volumes of participation, and so lead with an expectation that that people will do that, and just do it, boldly. Let's all stand if you're able, right? Let's all sing out loud. Everybody right now, I want to ask you to pray this out loud with me. Those kinds of things. Communion. Now, you interpret this based on your tradition and your theological beliefs about this. But we want to instruct people to take communion if that's what you want to do. And we want to do so with a balance of reverence and accessibility. Remembering that Jesus didn't appear to be particular about what kind of matzah bread or, what kind of cup of wine, like he took the bread and he took the wine. He says, often as you remember me, do that, and so he didn't say anything about seminary degrees or ordination, right? And so we want to do it with this sense of we get to prepare the elements together, and it is a sacred and it is a holy thing that we do, and it's oral wheat, and it's Welch's, or it's wine, from the rack, or it's, like, it can be whatever. Now, again, you interpret this however you want to interpret it, but I've taken communion by Gatorade, and it felt pretty holy to me. Okay? But we get to train people on that. Technology, be a stickler on it. All right? Just go, in the set apart room, we leave our cell phones. Encourage people to actually put it up on the flat screen, on the family TV screen, if those still exist, right? Get it off the individual, I'm looking at my screen, or even the iPad, and let's have a family or a roommate experience together. And you might want to give people an email pre-read. Here's the 5 things, the checklist of being ready, of creating a worship space in your house so that we can all do this together. Okay? But be bold about technology. Reason with them, tell them why, and insist on it. And then, one of the things that friends of mine at church doing is, on the front end of every service, they're taking like 3 minutes, 5 minutes to set up instruction. If you're just joining us, here's how we're going to participate today. Here's the flow of what we're going to be experiencing, communion and worship, etc. Now, we're going to give us all 2 minutes or so to set up your room, go grab your candle, go to the fridge and get the grape juice or the wine or whatever, and we all get set. And whether that's 5 minutes before the service or within the service, build it in. And how cool that literally we're doing in-home liturgies. Every church has a liturgy, even if you're like total freeform. Every church has a liturgy, and now we're breaking ground into the home. I just think it's cool. Number 2, create a sense of mutuality. What do I mean by that? We have the opportunity to blur the line between stage and seat, stage and pew, lectern and and we have an opportunity here to really equip our people and make them the practitioners, and we can be the guides. Like, Jesus is the hero, by the way, but it's a little bit of the Home Depot. You can do it, we can help, right? And the mutuality is things like, hey, we want to know what are you experiencing that's a best practice. We want to learn from you in your home. We want to have you post over social media what your space looks like, what's working for you, what's not working for you. Be curators of what your people are doing. Necessity is the mother of all invention, right? You've probably read that perfume was invented. I don't know if that's a necessity, but perfume was invented back during one of the plagues, right? Because of the foul stench of death, and there's all sorts of various innovations that have happened in heightened, frightful times. Well, here we are, I think, from an ecclesiological level, there's beautiful breakthrough opportunities for us. And let's put it in the hands of our people to be the innovators and the groundbreakers for us. Ask them to post stuff on social media of what's working. Allow them to comment on the feed. You got to make that decision. I just think it's worth it for a sense of mutuality. Trust your people in that way if you can. Build in conversation. Like, just say, okay guys, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I'm going to pause, and I want you to talk together. Deputize a leader. Who's the leader? Go ahead, point. Everybody point. Who's the leader? All right. Now, who's that? Shout out. I can't hear you, but still shout out with the Bob. Bob? Okay, Bob, you're the leader. All right, Bob, here's the question I want you to ask. You're going to have 5 minutes to go around the room. Okay? And so build that in. Now, I do want to say one important thing. Be mindful of shut-ins. Be mindful of single people or anyone that doesn't have others to experience this with. It could be something you mobilize around. It could be something that your staff is really conscientious and intentional about pairing folks up or being that person to someone else in this time. But let's not all assume that everyone has somebody that could be very despairing. So be mindful about that in your language and in how you craft this experience. Number 3, pray. And by pray, I'm so captivated by the idea that in our homes, we could be praying at a whole new level together. And we'll be praying out loud, and we can move beyond our rote good night prayers and our rote mealtime prayers and actually pray in a new way that doesn't feel like punctuation to a sentence, where we just add a little exclamation point, or it's not just something that we do to end a meeting together. Like, it's actual, real, and open prayer. And it will feel awkward, and it might feel weird, and we might not be used to doing that, but we can instruct our people, pray out loud, pray in free form, or pray along with us in this psalm. And we're going to all read a little line from a psalm, and then I want you just to pray as God prompts you to pray there. You can't mess this up. It doesn't have to sound flowery or eloquent. It doesn't have to sound sophisticated. It can just be you talking to God. And so we have the opportunity to equip and do that. Number 4, your speaking format will be determined upon who you are as a speaker, what you're most comfortable with, who your people are, what's going on in the climate of culture, your technological abilities, and the like. But in essence, you need to decide, is it going to be a little bit like this, what I'm doing here, a little bit of the Oval Office address, or is it going to be the speaking to Congress, to a full room, or is it going to be more of a forum, open kind of, social space kind of thing that you're trying to create an interactive thing? Again, your technological abilities, how you feel most comfortable, all those things will be kind of what you'll need to determine. Now also, when you speak to an empty room, you might have 4 or 5 people in that room to be your mock audience. Well, you need to decide, are you just looking straight in the camera because that's what you think who your people are and what they most need and who you are? Or are you going to speak to an empty room as if it's full? And you need to kind of decide that. And if you do, then that's how you will determine where your people are placed. Okay? Because you'll want to place them at right around the camera if you're just going to look at the camera the whole time, or in the far corners of every part of the room, so you're making sure to sweep the whole room. And what's important about that is also how you pick your venue format. That's number 5. Do you do all your bells and whistles like you normally do? Or do you record from a smaller, more intimate setting? And again, all those same criteria are what's determined in there. But I'd want to say something about when you bring your people in and they're your mock, people, that are your mock crowd, I guess. Coach them on what you need from them. Ask them to be rapt with attention. Tell them to leave their cell phones out of the room, not just so they won't go off, but so that they won't be distracted. Ask them to nod and be demonstrative, right? Tell them what you need and how they can be praying for you through the whole experience. You place them where you want them. You tell them, here's a part of my talk. When I get to it, I really need you praying in this part. And I am going to feed off your energy. Yes, I'm imagining, like we talked about in session 1, I'm imagining an engaged and full room, and you will help with my imagination. Okay, so be really clear and directive, and obviously gracious, but coach your people in the room. Now, number 6, we need to manage the tension between normalcy and creativity in this time. We have a lot of opportunity to try new things. So I shared an idea with a pastor friend of mine about, hey, well, you could actually just do kind of a down and dirty lo-fi recording from a different staff member's home each week. And then, we're creating mutuality. Oh, hey, there's Brian in his home, and there's Dave in his home, or there's Brian and Dave in the kitchen, and it creates this folksy, homey, accessible kind of thing that we wouldn't normally have the opportunity to do. The more we talked about it, Brian just said, hey, we're having to invest right now in some technology, so we want to think long-term about that investment. We also have technology that we want to leverage, and it's in our big auditorium, right? But the more we talked about it, I just thought, there's something about normalcy. People are experiencing so much change right now that their change threshold and tolerance level is really low. And so there might be just a sweet comfort to seeing the beautiful environment of the stage that you've created and have always created, the lights just as the lights always are, and even the haze, heaven forbid, rising up and you there under the spotlight on the stage like they're used to. So just remember, in heightened, uncertain times, we need structure, we need routine, and we need constancy, normalcy, wherever we can get it. How can you provide that while at the same time bringing some innovation and trying new things on? It's attention to manage, as I believe Andy Stanley would say, and just be mindful of that. Number 7, no danglers. This just means eliminate your distractions. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but we want to be excellent, not perfect like we talked about in the last session, not polished. We want to be our authentic selves, but let's eliminate unnecessary distractions with good camera angles, good lighting, good sound. Just bring what you have, trust God with it, and know that cameras can get up in your business. So, no danglers. Watch the nose hair. Muted shirts are better than, extravagant shirts and the like, because we want to just remove all obstacles. Like it says in Isaiah 40, where the mountains are high, let's bring them low. Where the valleys are low, let's raise them to level ground. Where the path is rugged, God, would you make it smooth so that all flesh together will see the glory of God? So what's our part in removing those kinds of obstacles? And number 8, talked about this in the first session. We're just hoping for a divine forgetfulness, that God would just cause you to forget where you are in the moment, forget the empty room, forget that there are people in their own chaos trying to listen to you, and it'll just be you in intimate partnership with Jesus by the power of his Holy Spirit moving in amazing ways. And number 9, I just want to say, guys, gals, this matters. What you're doing matters. When it's an empty room, remember, like we said, it's full of the Holy Spirit. The one who walked through doors will walk through screens. Declare, though this room is empty, I declare it full of the Spirit of the living God. And know that charisma proclamation, whether in great times or horrific times, continues. Remember that God's redemptive work, it has been just unfolding day after day, epoch after epoch, season after season, and it doesn't stop now. What you are doing, how you are leading, the words you are communicating matters. And lastly, realize what's happening here. These are heavy times. These are hard times. We just learned today in our family of a dear friend's dad who just passed away this morning from COVID-19. So I say this not to make light of anyone's situation, but realize from a church perspective the fruit that can come. What's happening here is we are instructing our people. We are equipping them not to think, I go to church. We're equipping them to say, I am the church, to become the church. We are putting the power back into the hands of the people and saying, you get to be the practitioners. You get to be the experts. Imagine families opening up old school Bibles. By the way, I encourage old school Bibles. Like the average home in America has 7 Bibles. Let's encourage them to use them if they can, without shame. Let's instruct them where to find whatever passage you're reading. But just imagine them with actual Bibles on their laps, singing out loud, off key, praying and instructing their children to pray because you have been a guide. Imagine who we will be as a church. I fully believe that when this lifts, we'll be so hungry to come back together. There'll be such a sweetness in our gatherings, in our worship together. And when we come back together, we won't be the same. We'll be marked by this moment, but I think we'll be deepened. There will be a fruit in us that otherwise we would have never, ever borne. And so let's walk with the one who walks through doors. Let's speak with the one who speaks throughout the cosmos, in season and out of season. And let's realize and continue to pray, God, what are you doing in and among us? And how can I join you for your glory? for your work of redeeming and making all things new. May it be so.